Which maamar we're learning?
Tzion,
Very good. Tzion b'mishpat Tipadeh. Which year?
1976.
Yeah, 1976. Yeah, bicentennial. Right. Tafshin Lamed Vav. Very good. Which chapter are we on?
8.
8. Yeah, we're on 8. Okay. So, if you remember, the maamar begins. This is the Rebbe's maamar, and it begins with analyzing the Alter Rebbe's maamar in Likutei Torah, where the Alter Rebbe makes a statement about what happens if one does not follow the injunction that the Torah is to be new or as new, kechadoshim. The words of Torah are to be as new in your eyes. That this leads to becoming emotionally attached to your material well-being, and then all of your happiness and sadness becomes based on that. And then I've asked some questions about, well, why is that so? How does that work? And we learned a little bit more about the mechanics of that based on some understanding of Seviv and Memale, and how within time and transcendent of time operate, and Zo and Malchus, and Kuchbrichu and Shchinte. And basically what we're saying is that when you learn Torah in a way where it is brand new, hot off the presses, this is a unification of the different energies. And if God forbid not, the opposite we were speaking about last week in chapter 7, if not, then that actually is what causes forgetfulness, where you don't remember the Torah, and then it causes galus, because it causes the Shechina should be nurturing klippa, and it causes that foreign entities have power over us, and all types of not nice stuff. Okay. So now we're on chapter 8. All right. V'zeh hu macrocosm Zecher Havaya Me Hayolanu. This is the meaning of the verse, and this is a verse from Eicha, from Lamentations. Zecher Havaya, remember Havaya, remember Hashem, Me Hayolanu, what happened to us, what has befallen us. Sort of I was going to say a lamentation, but that sounds a little bit corny, because yes, it is in the book of Lamentations, plural, and that is one of the lamentations, is, wow, Hashem, remember what befell us, sort of wistfully, more than wistfully, it's like, it's grief. Okay. Mavor atamach tzedek dimehu shem havaya, that the Tzemach Tzedek explains that this word, the vowel is with a segel, meh, but it's ma, it's what? That ma, meh, ma, mem hey. That this ma, this what, refers to the Shem Havaya, to the name of Havaya. It says in parentheses, bimilui alfin bigamatria ma. And we've spoken about this concept before, the miluyim of Shem Havaya, that when you spell out the letters of Yud Ke Vav Ke, so you spell the Yud Vav Dalet, right? So then you get different gematrias depending on how you spell the letters, because there are various ways of spelling the letters. So for instance, the hey, you could spell it hey aleph or hey yud or hey. Milui alphin means where you use every possible aleph in all the different variations of spelling out the letters. And then you get the total, the sum total, 45, which is ma. And we call that Shem Ma. Shem Ma is a name of Havaya spelled out, or a milui. Milui means filled, but it means filled out, meaning the letters within each letter are filled in. Okay. So the Tzemach Tzedek says in this verse, Zecher Havaya me hayolanu me ma mem hey, that's referring to the Shem Ma. V'lanu, and us, or to us, hu begamatria Eloikim. V'lanu hu begamatria Eloikim. Should we count it out? Lamed is 30. Nun is 50. Vav is, what do we got? Vav is 6. Yeah, what do we got total? 30, 50, and 6? 86. Elokim, which is also, by the way, Hatava. I'm saying gematria-wise. Hatava. Yeah, we learned it in Shari Yuchad Ve'amunah. That Elokim is gematria Hatava, because it's godliness as it is invested in or hidden behind the natural order. Okay. So Memhe is the Shem Ma that comes out to 45. It's Havaya with the Miluyin, with Milui Alfin. And Lanu is Elokim. Upirish Me Hoya Lanu. And so therefore, what does it mean in Lamentations when it says Me Hoya Lanu? That which has befallen us. Who? It means Shahavaya Naisa V'chinas Elokim. Me Hoya Lanu. That Shema became Elokim. You follow? Me Hoya Lanu could be, oh, woe, what has happened to us. It could also be Me Shema Hoya became Elokim. Lanu B'gamatir Elokim. Havaya became Elokim.
Didn't Hoya was? It didn't become, it was.
It was. Okay, now it is.
Oh.
V'yesh leimar, and that there is to say, the Rebbe suggests, the inyan mehayalanu ba'avedus ha'adam hu. What does it mean? To quote your favorite question, what does this mean for us? Okay, so the Rebbe says, what does this mean for us? In avedus ha'adam. Avedus ha'adam means, we just learned a concept. You can learn that concept as it exists in the spiritual realms, and that's valuable. But also, how do you translate that into our service of Hashem? Avedus ha'adam. Okay. So the Rebbe said, because apparently the Tzemach Tzedek doesn't spell that out. The Tzemach Tzedek said, Mehoyolonu is Shema becoming Elokim, but he doesn't spell it out what it means in Avedus ha'adam. The Rebbe says, so v'yesh leima, perhaps we can say, here's what it means in Avedus ha'adam. The Havayu hula maile mahatava. Havaya yud kevavke hoya hoya v'yeh was, is, and will be transcendent of time. That is above nature. We say that often, that Havaya is above nature, or miraculous, supernatural. V'elakim b'gematria hatava. And as I mentioned earlier, Elakim actually is the gematria hatava, the natural order. Shagam kishiyeshna la'odam hatzlacha shalamayla matava hu cheshiv shezetava. That even when a person has success that is clearly beyond the natural order, he perceives it as being natural. He explains away the miracle. He says, well, you know, I just was in the right place at the right time and I knew a guy. No, buddy, that was a miracle. No, it was hard work and it was good timing. Okay, just explained away the miracle. So that's the lamentation. The lamentation, Meho Yolanu. Whoa, what has become of us? That we're experiencing miracles and we are interpreting them, misinterpreting them, as natural phenomena. And even more than that, says the Rebbe. Sometimes his supernatural success is itself what causes him to forget and to believe and to fool himself and to think, to believe his own PR and to think that that my strength, my prowess made for me all this success. In other words, before he was talking about a previous level where it's bad enough that you're just mistaking the miracle for nature. This is an even worse, more egregious level where the miracle itself is what you're using to fool yourself to not see miracles. In other words, if that miracle had never happened to you, you wouldn't have, quote unquote, the evidence that you do now that this is a normal thing. It's kind of ironic that because the miracle happened, that's your evidence. Oh yeah, it's a normal thing. And the proof is it just happened. Yeah, but it was a miracle. No, it happened. Yeah, a miracle happened. No, it's just a regular thing that happened. So actually, unfortunately, that's where the miracle causes him to forget about Hashem. A miracle actually...
I thought it seemed like he's taking credit for it.
He's taking credit for it, yeah. Yeah. He's not attributing the miracle to its actual source. It says in brackets, Val derech shahaya ba'egel. And similarly with the egel, with the golden calf. Dezeh sha'al yedei Hashem yali. Remember we mentioned according to the Arizal that there was the name Yali written on that tablet that Moshe Rabbeinu used to bring up Yosef's casket. That through the name Yali, Naisa Aliyas Hashar, that caused that the ox should rise up. Inyan Shalamayla Mahateva, which is obviously something above nature, meaning that was miraculous. And that caused the Jews at that time to err and to think that it was happening on its own. So it's very similar to the golden calf, where if you would be assessing things correctly, your immediate assessment should be, wow, Hashem is doing some wild stuff here. But if you're looking at it divorced from its context, taking just this little myopic slice of it, you're like, oh wow, that cow sure is powerful. No, the cow's not doing it. The cow's not the source of it. And similarly, when a person has success that Hashem gives him supernaturally, a person shouldn't think that he's the one who's doing it. He's just like the cow. He's not the source of it. It's happening through him. Okay. So the solution when you're in this rut is Zachair Havaya. Remember Hashem. That your service of Hashem should be in a manner of remembrance. Remembrance that transcends limitation. As we were speaking about at length in this maamar, that forgetfulness happens when you're locked into just seeing the mamale divorced from the soivev. And remembering and keeping Torah fresh and integrated and relevant is when you see how the timeless and the timely converge. So, Zachair Havaya, remember Hashem, then that is the antidote to Meh Hayalonu, the miraculous, being misconstrued as simple nature. And this is the same concept as, what does it mean, Zachair Havaya, remember Hashem? It's the same concept of keeping the Torah fresh in your eyes. And that causes a revelation, meaning you will perceive Havaya, the transcendent energy of Hashem, which is another way of saying Or HaSevev Gam Shlamayla Mislabshus, the transcendent light, which is higher than being invested within the world. You're not trapped into only perceiving that which I called last week. I said it's one step better than materialism. Because materialism is where you believe that there's nothing but physicality. The only reality is physical. So this is one notch better than materialism, where you say there is spirituality, but only in as much as it invests itself within the material. So we're saying that attitude of only perceiving the spiritual energy that is invested strictly within the material world, that leads to this forgetfulness or this detachment from Hashem and from Torah. But if you perceive that there's godliness which is way beyond the confines of the physical world and the confines of time, and therefore you're experiencing something that can't be nailed down. You You can't nail it down to a timeline and say, well, how new is this? When was the Torah given? Thousands of years ago. This is old stuff. These people didn't know about technology. They didn't know about our lives. This is an old document. You know, that kind of attitude. That comes from not understanding that Torah really also even though it was given in the time space continuum, there is a date when Torah was given, yes, and it's thousands of years ago, but simultaneously Torah is transcendent of the limitations of time. And that's by virtue of the soivev, the transcendent energy. V'yesh l'kash is that im pirush habal shem tov ala pasuk, and the Rebbe says we could perhaps connect all of this to what the Baal Shem Tov explained on the verse, that this word, or this word ma, in Zecher Havaya Meha Yolanu, the Baal Shem Tov says that ma refers to the ma of the neshama. What's the ma of the neshama? Ki ma the haneshama hu etzem haneshama shelamayla mislabshus. The ma, the what of the soul, is that aspect of the soul which cannot be contained within the body. It's not expressed through embodiment. It's the core, it's the essence. Shikshura im havaya shelamayla mislabshus ba'elam. And that in turn is connected to that level of Hashem, which is also transcendent. So the aspect of the neshama which mirrors Hashem's transcendence, that's called the ma of the neshama. And when you tap into that aspect of your own neshama, you will come to a level of zechor, of remembrance. Which means serving an Hashem in a way that transcends limitation. Specifically, we say the limitations are limitations of time, seeing Torah as an old document, which then translates to the limitation of becoming a materialistic person whose only happiness and sadness are based on his material welfare. Yeah.
Can you just flesh this piece out?
Yeah.
That when you tap into that aspect of the neshama,
Yeah.
can you just take a minute here?
You want to take a minute here?
Yeah, because that's who we are, and that's who we're interacting with.
What we're inviting ourselves right now to do is to identify a part of our identity. It's more than a part, actually. Like you said, it's who we are. It's actually the essence of our identity.
Is that the mamish?
Well, the mamish is the Alter Rebbe's edition. That word mamish. You're talking about chilek and lekamimal. Mamish. Yeah. Well, the mamish is the Alter Rebbe's chiddush, where he says that mamish means even in embodiment, meaning to say the soul in heaven has that aspect to it is remarkable, but to say even in mamoshes, in mamish, in the physical world, it still retains that. That's the Alter Rebbe's chiddush. Well, the mamish just means that it doesn't lose it even when it comes into embodiment. But the ma of the neshama, he's identifying as the etzem haneshama, the essence of the soul, which is, we call it makif, which means transcendent, surrounding, similar to the Or Sovev. But what it means is, it's not the soul like we talk about soul powers, like Seichel and Midos, chapter 3 of Tanya, that kind of stuff. It's something much, much deeper and more essential than that. It's just the soul's basic, underlying, unchangeable connection to Hashem. Meaning there are no conditions that can take away from this or even add to it. The soul is just inextricably bound up and inherently bound up with Hashem. And that's why we call it transcendent, because something that is affected by the conditions of its embodiment, that's more like mamale, that's the koiches pnimium, we call them, the internalized soul faculties, which have to be filtered through various capacities. And this is the essence. So what we're saying is, there's a part of you that is pristine and cannot be corrupted, and not only cannot be corrupted, it's not contained by or affected by your embodiment. So if you will get in touch with that deepest self, then that also is synonymous with Zechor Hashem, remembering Hashem, meaning remembering how Hashem is transcendent. Hashem is miraculous. So basically what we're describing here is a certain type of awakening or awareness. In this case, the way he's describing the process, it begins with an awareness of self. And then it becomes extrapolated to an awareness of Hashem. Yeah. Well, you can fight it out, whichever.
So some people are more naturally inclined this way, and some people are less abstract thinking.
And you know what? Some days, some of us are more inclined.
100%.
Yeah, sure.
So how, for those less abstract thinkers, more concrete,
The concrete thinkers,
how are they? What's a way to help them open up that
yeah.
channel to be?
That's such a wonderful
You
question.
should take Rabbi Taub's parenting class, because this is class 2 of the parenting class.
Very good. The parenting class will really solve all issues in
It'll
Klal
solve
Yisrael.
all issues, the public service announcement.
You know, it's interesting. There are certain types of people that I've encountered who get really annoyed by Chassidus. Like, it actually upsets them.
That so triggered.
They get triggered by it, yeah. And then they'll be like, well, I don't need that fluff. And it's like, well, that'll be a common thing. Well, this is for people like, inspiration. I like meat and potatoes. And I always think it's interesting, especially if they're saying that about Chassidus Chabad, where it's so intellectually challenging. Like, did you really try to learn it? Because to dismiss it like that as fluff, you didn't even sit down and learn a maamar and tell me it's fluff, right? What they're really saying is, I can't relate to this because it's abstract. And what are they really saying? And usually what these people are saying is they come from a background where for them Torah is that there was an ox and there was a cow and a guy sold a boat and Mishnah, Gemara, and concrete, which is funny because if you learn Chassidus, you'll learn that all of these cases in the Mishnah are not even really concrete, that you're learning the lower level manifestation of it, but really they're all speaking about spiritual phenomena that's behind the lower level manifestation of it. So my only answer to this, and one answer, and it's wrong, is, well, those people just don't get to learn Chassidus. They don't know. They lose out. It's wrong. That's a wrong answer. The My Nefesh Obama says that. It's like, well, if you don't like it, you don't get to learn it. But the Rebbe stressed so many times that in this generation, not only everyone can learn Pnimiyus HaTorah, everybody must learn Pnimiyus HaTorah. So I'm not allowed to say to people, well, if you don't like Chassidus, then you lose out. My only answer is that it's an acquired taste, and through learning it. Well, contemplation, yeah, you're saying not just to sit there and listen to the words, but actually to go try to think about meditation. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, listen,
Yeah.
someone who's immersed in Torah, I get it. My son said he was in camp and he gave a chabura, and he saw one kid was just twitching and like he couldn't. He said he came from a very sheepish family.
Right,
and
and gets
he
nervous from
turns
that
to
stuff.
him And he says, every time I say Baal Shem Tov, think Vilna Gaon.
Okay, that's another triggering. That's people are triggered because of indoctrination they have.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that's one thing. But
Yeah.
now I'm talking about, what about like
I'm talking about
the
concrete
regular
thinkers, which is
person
originally what you're
who's
talking
not
about.
in the Torah world, how do they tap into
Well,
that?
I don't know if it has to do with somebody.
Rock bottom.
And by the way, that is one solution, by the way.
They should hit rock
when
They do. Everyone does.
when life falls apart, then all of a sudden you don't get to be so picky and choosy. Yeah.
Why should they have to get there?
No,
Like,
not.
how-
Oh, you saying
I
in
think
life,
that there's
not
different
everyone has that.
venues and different ways for them to hear it.
No, but for someone who's not in that world at all, never gonna bring themselves into it, I think when people hit rock bottom, that's when they start.
There's no question that a little crisis will make people open to things they didn't think they were open to. There's no question. Anyways, to answer your question, we have to do our best to try to teach Pnimiyas Torah in the most palatable way. And we do our best. We try to serve it up and make it attractive to different types of thinkers, people from different backgrounds. And that's our job. We have a shlichus of Hafatzas Hamayonos. So we do what we can do. I try to do my part, and other people do their part, and a lot of people are teaching Chassidus, and hopefully between all the different offerings that exist, there will be something for everybody. We hope. That's what we got to work on. But at any rate, yes.
There's no like little like
A trick?
a trick to like
No, I don't think there's a trick. I really think that you just have to try different things for different people. No, there's no one-size-fits-all trick, because everybody goes for different things. And that's why always there were always different mashpiyim who would understand the different styles of the different communities and different individuals. That's the way that it always was. You have to have Chassidus being taught in a different style for different audiences, and hopefully you just try everything until you get every audience. And by the way, it's not even just Klal Yisrael. It's not only just Jews. Really, the whole world, 8 billion people. Yeah, the non-Jews are also supposed to learn Chassidus. They're supposed to learn about Yichud Hashem and Achdus Hashem. So we got to figure out, well, okay, I'm trying to do my part in putting out Chassidus on YouTube. I try to do my part of translating it in a way that is accessible to at least a certain type of personality. And that's it. And everybody else can do their part. Like you come to this year and you can go post on social media what you learned from this year. You put it in your words. And there are going to be people who will learn it from you that won't learn it from me. There are people where you could come to this year and say what you learned in this year, and then say to people, come to this year. They won't come to this year, but they'll hear your chazorah, they'll hear how you repeat it, and that's how they'll get it. Okay, fine, no problem.
will it go in?
Yeah.
They're not an abstract thinker.
Well, it's a muscle, and the more that you use it, the better you get at using it. You just have to be exposed to it. Anyways, you're right. There are people who are not predisposed to this type of thinking, but
I have one kid in my family. Most of my kids are abstract thinkers. We talk about spirituality. We talk about
Okay.
and all this stuff, and she's looking at us like we're all crazy.
And
We might be a little crazy.
and let me ask you this: and if she weren't exposed to constant talk about this kind of stuff, imagine how even more unrelatable it would be. So it's through exposure. Exposure. Okay.
Watch it.
What else? I want to move to chapter 9 so we could actually finish today. Was there anything else about chapter 8? We're good? Solid? Okay. Chapter 9. Anyways, we have to teach Chassidus to the world, okay? Even to the concrete thinkers. Okay, let's finish the maamar today with Hashem's help. Chapter 9, V'zehu Tzion b'mishpat Tipadeh v'shaveh b'tzdaka. And this is the meaning of the verse. Going back to the verse, the original verse, that Tzion means here the Jewish people, will be redeemed through judgment, and her captives will be redeemed through tzedakah. Shem beis dargis b'neshama. That's actually describing two levels within the neshama, on a deeper level. In the literal level, Tzion is talking about the Jewish people being redeemed. But on a deeper level, we're talking about two levels of the neshama. Tzion, he dargas in neshama shelamayla mislabshus baguf ma, the neshama Tzion is the level of the neshama which is higher than being invested in the body. That's what we were referring to a moment earlier as the ma of the neshama. That level is not and cannot be a captive of the animal soul. So there's no concept of shaveha, of her captives, because that level of ma of the neshama cannot be corrupted, it cannot be captivated, the animal soul cannot imprison it. Shahamirus vahasimcha shalo yu minyane elam hazeh. it would never be susceptible to its happiness and pain being based on its material welfare. V'rak begolus. Rather, what happens to it? It's in golus. It's not in captivity, it's in golus. There's a difference. She'ena me'ira begilui b'haneshama shebeguf. It can't express itself. It can't shine in a revealed way into the part of the neshama which is in the body. Okay, so what we're saying is this level, which we refer to as Tzion, which means a sign or a mark, a designation, which is the soul as it transcends embodiment, and it cannot be corrupted. It will never become a captive of the animal soul. But what can happen to it is it can be in gullus, which means it cannot express itself in a way that will affect the neshama that is invested in the body.
I don't understand. When
It's screaming into the wind.
we're in Gullus and we're here to express ourselves in Gullus.
This ma of the neshama
Yeah.
sees things and knows things and is trying to communicate those things, and no one will listen. By no one, I mean
Within ourselves, like
it's all happening internally. This is all internally. The part of your neshama which is above being invested in the body is trying to talk to the part of your neshama that's invested in the body, but that part of the neshama is captive.
Is that like the animal soul?
Well, it's a captive of the animal soul. So the part of the neshama, the godly soul which is invested in the body, is being held prisoner by the animal soul, and the part of the neshama which can never be a captive is trying to send messages to the part of the neshama which is in prison, and it's not listening.
Why?
Because it's a captive.
It is or it's not?
Because of
I thought it was
exile.
in Gullus.
It's not a captive.
There's two levels.
Because the one that can hear it is
There's one level that's a captive.
Okay.
There's one level that can never be a captive, but it can be in gullus, which means it can't communicate with the level that is captive.
Why is this significant? The captive versus Gullus. Baby's laughing at my question, but it's okay.
Because you're understanding what's going on. Maybe you never understood why you're so messed up. Now you're finding out. This is the mechanics of what's happening to us.
Dysregulation is caused by?
What?
This is like what dysregulation is caused by?
This is one big form of dysregulation, yeah. Basically, oh, that's what's wrong with me. That's what's happening. So hold on a second. I have a part of me that will never, ever be corrupted by gullus or any of this craziness that's going on. Beautiful. And yet, that part of me can't get in touch with the part of me that I am consciously aware of. So we got a little problem there. Like, it's like almost tragic, because like if you would tell me, no, you're completely a captive. Okay, so then I'm completely a captive. No, there's a part of you that's always free, which is intrinsically free. But it can't get messages and express itself to the part of you that's experiencing embodiment.
So like
Ever?
it can never get
No, we're just talking about a condition right now. We're just describing a situation.
you're disconnected from that.
This is a dysfunctional situation we're describing. Okay, we're describing a dysfunctional
But
situation.
it's our situation.
Yes.
So we're in a
Yeah, and spoiler alert, obviously the reason we're talking about it is to figure out a remedy. Obviously we're not wallowing in this, but so hang in there. We are going to talk about how to deal with this.
Clarify. There's a neshama. There's a part of the neshama that transcends.
Right, which we'll call the ma of the neshama. Yeah.
There's
Which
a
is
part-
corresponds to Shem Havaya, which corresponds to Soivev,
and see 'em.
and it's called Tzion.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a part of the neshama that's the animal soul.
No, it's not the animal
That's
soul.
a separate neshama. That's a separate.
Separate.
soul?
You learned, Tanya.
I know. That's what I'm trying to understand. We have two.
It's the
souls.
neshama that's bihislapshus, that is in the embodiment, and as such, one of the, I'd say maybe the main result of its embodiment is that it can be dominated by the animal soul. And right now it is being dominated by the animal soul, and it can't get messages from the Tzion, from the level of the neshama.
So
That's
the
not.
godly soul splits.
It's not split.
A part goes into the animal soul.
Not the animal.
A
Well,
part
yes, a
goes
part does
into
go
the
into the animal soul. It goes.
And the animal soul.
Yeah,
controls
it's
it.
a sack within a sack. It's the part of the godly soul that's inside the animal soul, which in turn is inside the body.
Right.
Double back.
And now this this
And the
ma
transcendent ma
is trying to get messages.
is trying to get messages.
But it's not going.
It's not, well, it's going, but it's not received. It's not being
Like
received.
Yehuda? Is that like a...
Could call it yichida, yeah. Yeah, yes.
But this is my question. Does this part that's in the animal soul get subsumed in the animal soul? Like, why are we making such a distinction between the animal soul and this part that gets swallowed by the animal soul?
Because if it were just the animal soul on its own, it wouldn't be so dangerous. But it's a godly soul that's being misappropriated. So it's got all that power.
Okay, so the animal soul is converting this.
Yeah, it's a really dysfunctional situation.
So, okay, is this captivity or is this galus?
That is very good. That is captivity. That is captivity. There's the Tzion level, which cannot become subject to captivity, but it can face and does face the problem we call galus,
What is galus?
where it cannot communicate with the part of the neshama which is in captivity.
So there's a part that's in captivity.
Yes.
That's captivity.
Yes.
And the part
Captivity of the animal soul. Meaning captivity that is brought on by the animal soul. The jailer or the jail is the animal soul.
Now
The
there's
prisoner is the part of the neshama which is invested in the body.
Right. And now there's this ma and there's this Tzion that's in galus. What does galus mean? Galus means I can't communicate
Correct.
with the other part of
Yes, correct.
And how does that compare to the Shechina and Malchus?
You could plug in all of these concepts. Yeah, okay. Just, I don't want to confuse people further, but yes, you could plug in all these concepts to their parallels.
Wait, so are we as a nation or as a world in captivity?
Let's just talk about the microcosm. We're talking about you. That's it. We're talking about you. This is what's happening to you. We're describing you. Now, yeah, it's the rest of us too. But right now, this is your personal session with the Rebbe. It's talking about you. I always wondered my whole life why I was so messed up. Now I just found out. Amazing. Amazing. And like I told you, spoiler alert, obviously, we're not just talking about it to talk about it. We're going to offer a solution. Of course. Okay. All right. V'shaveha hi dargas haneshama shebislabshus. So the captive, like you just clarified a minute ago, but he says it here explicitly, so you could have just waited. Okay, hint, hint. All right. Shaveha, the captive, is the neshama that is in embodiment. And that's the part of the soul that is susceptible to being captivated by the animal soul. Which means, let's spell it out, where its happiness and its pain become based on its material welfare. So that's what captivity means. Captivity means, here's a neshama its joy and pain should be based on spiritual stuff, and instead, a neshama's joy and pain is based on physical stuff. That's a real captivity. Okay. V'yesh laimar, so the Rebbe says, possibly we can say, Shehu al derech hamavur bepirush hakosov v'teimer tzien azavani avaya v'adnai shchachoni. There's a verse from Isaiah. It says, V'toimer Tzion said, Azovani Havaya has abandoned me. Va'adnai, and Hashem, Aleph Daled Nun Yud, Shchechoni has forgotten me. Deshicha hu sheyesh davar hamashakeach v'lo rak heder hazikarin. Forgetting means not only that you don't remember, but that there's something that causes the forgetfulness. A davar hamashakeach. It's not just passive, what he calls heder hazikarin, lack of remembering. I just happen not to remember. No. There's something actively disruptive here. There's a davar hamashakeach. There's something displaced. Stop! You made me forget. You know what that happens, right? Every time you're teaching and people ask wonderful questions and you're like, now I forgot what I was going to say.
That's a distraction.
A distraction, yes, a distraction. You know what? This class, what I could say is the distractions are on a very high level. Baruch Hashem. Yes. All the distractions here are very holy. Honestly, I mean that. Okay. But now we're talking about like unholy distractions. We're talking about like really like unhealthy, unwholesome distractions where we're forgetting Hashem. V'zehu azavani avaya va'adnai shechechoni. And that's what it means. Havaya has abandoned me and Adnai has forgotten me. What does that mean? When you're talking about Shem Havaya, which is Soivev and which is above investment in the worlds, Ein Shaykh Inyan Hashicha Chas V'Sholom V'Rak Inyan Haziva. There can be no forgetting, but there can be abandonment. I know exactly where it is. I'm very aware. I'm just not going there. I'm not checking on it. I'm not tending to it. So it's not, I didn't forget about you. I'm ignoring you. Right. So there can be a level from Havaya, because it's Soivev, it's transcendent, it's not going to forget, but there could be an experience of abandonment, meaning where it withdraws to the outer realms and it's like not there.
What's the it? Are we talking about soul? Are we still talking about
Our relationship with Hashem.
Okay, we're not in the two neshama pieces now.
Well, it's going to plug back into that.
Okay.
V'hu shebegalusa kud shabrichu salak la'ela. And that's what it means in the Zohar when it says that begalusa, in galus, kud shabrichu, the transcendent godliness, salak la'ela, withdraws upward. Ve'ena meir begili lamata, doesn't shine in a revealed way down here. So it's so transcendent that it's not really affecting the world. So that's not forgotten, that's abandoned. It's removed. It's in another realm. But the point is, even though it may be removed, it doesn't get hijacked. To the contrary, because it's removed, it can't be hijacked. Now he relates us back to what we were saying before, the level of the neshama called Tzion, or ma, which isn't shining into the body. So there's this level of kud shabrichu, of this transcendent godliness, which is out there in the higher realms, and it's not shining, it's not being revealed in the physical world, down here. Similar phenomenon. So we're saying that's not shicha, that's aziva. It's not forgetfulness, it's abandonment.
It makes it sound like you're a victim.
I don't know. That's a subjective judgment. Okay. So that's Havaya. That's Havaya. Remember, we had two Shemos, we had two divine names here in this pasuk. Then we have Va'adnai, Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, which is Malchus. Those who remember chapter 7 of Shari Yichud V'Amunah, remember that. Shebechlolus hu oir hamamale, which is mamale. In general, it's mamale. Right, so you have Kud Shabrichu, which is Soivev and Havaya, and you have Malchus, which is like the Shechina and which is like mamale. Shaykh by gam inyan ashicha, and there can be forgetfulness, not just abandonment, but forgetting. Yeridas hamalchus lahachias aklipus, what we mentioned before, where malchus descends to becoming the nurturer of klippa itself, where she has to take care of and give energy to the negative forces. Al derech, and this is similar to hashivya, the captivity, but dargas and neshama shebechinas eslabshus, that captivity that happens to the part of the soul which is in the body, where it becomes a captive. Well, this is the Shechina being forced to work for the bad guys. Shahamiridos v'hasimcha shalo yechel m'liyes minyan elam hazeh, which is the same condition that we described before, where your emotional state becomes tied to your material welfare. So what are we saying? We're talking about two levels. One level which is transcendent, one level which is immanent. Transcendent level's problem is that it's so transcendent, it's not having an effect down here. Then you're talking about the immanent level, the one that's in this world, but its problem is it gets hijacked. And it actually has to work for the bad guys. And then what happens to it? It starts feeling, maybe call it Stockholm Syndrome. Maybe, perhaps, that'll be a good meme title for this class. Stockholm Syndrome of the Neshama. Of the soul. Stockholm Syndrome of the soul. Got the little alliteration going. Where,
About the Shekhinah now.
same thing.
Okay.
We're speaking about the phenomenon on two levels here. We're talking about Kutshabich and Shchinte. It's the same thing. Seviv and Malay. The Ma or Tzion of the Neshama and the Neshama B'Hislapshus. This is all the same concept, these same paradigms. What happens is there's this level that cannot become captive because it's transcendent, but its problem is that it's so transcendent, it's not having an effect anywhere.
That's gullus.
And we call that gullus, yeah. Then there's a level which is B'Hislapshus, but what happens to it is it becomes captivated. And then the ultimate sign of that is it forgets Torah and it attaches its emotional well-being to its material affairs.
Which is like the Shekhinah and the clip.
Which is like Shekhinah being stuck nurturing Klippa.
What happens when the Shekhinah gets captivated?
So it's strengthening the Klippa. The mother is nursing the enemies that get up and hurt her children.
Then we suffer.
It's very, yeah. V'zehu tzion b'mishpat tipadeh v'shaveh b'tzedakah. But this is what it means when it describes the solution, that Tzion will be redeemed b'mishpat, with judgment, v'shaveha, and her captives b'tzedakah will be redeemed through tzedakah. Shahapadiyah the bechinas Tzion mahadvarim hamachasam aleha umeinim agilui shalo b'had neshama shebaguf. The redemption of Tzion, which basically means the removal of those forces which cover and block her being revealed to the neshama that's in the body.
Meaning the animal soul.
Meaning the neshama which is captive by the animal soul, right? So the padiyah of Tzion, the neshama which is higher than the body, means the removal of the obstacles that were preventing it from shining into the part of the neshama which presently is captivated by the animal soul.
I thought Tzion can't be captive. So I'm saying it's removing.
It's
the thing
not
that's
captive.
exiling it.
There's a blockage that's not allowing that higher level
coming
to
from
shine
below.
into the lower level. So there's a higher level that's not a captive, but it's being blocked from the level of the neshama which is a captive.
And the blockage is coming from below.
So the padiyah, the redemption, is the removal of the blockage. The removal of the blockage. Hu al yedei ha-Torah. That removal of the blockage is effected through Torah. Mishpat hu hilchais ha-Torah. Mishpat, the mechanism that removes that blockage, mishpat, judgment, is halacha. Halacha are Hashem's judgments. This is kosher, this is pasul. Chayev, zakai. So mishpat means Torah. Kamei she mitargim al pasuk kamishpat harishain kehilchasa kadmaisa. Or like the Targum Onkelos, when it translates the words kamishpat harishain, it translates it as kehilchasa kadmaisa, which means that the word mishpat can be translated as halacha. Ki ha-Torah hi oir, Torah oir, because Torah is light, that we refer to it as Torah oir. V'lochin al yod naisa hagilui de bechinas Tzion, and that, because Torah is light, it allows the light of Tzion to shine. So the way that we remove the blockage whereby the higher soul was not able to communicate with the lower soul. By lower soul, again, because you keep equating that with the animal soul. It's not. It's the neshama, it's the nefesh elokis, which is captivated by the animal soul. Okay, the way we remove the blockage is through Torah. By Torah means learning halacha. Yeah, learning what we're supposed to do. It means open a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and find out what are the laws of the 9 days. Simple instructions of what Hashem's opinion of what it's supposed to be like, how you're supposed to do something, where do you put a mezuzah, how do you salt meat, not that any of us does that stuff, but it is in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and any of the instructions that, I should just mention because somebody's going to totally misinterpret that, the reason we don't salt meat is because it's done for us, so we never have the opportunity to do it. But if you would get your meat straight from the slaughterer, then yes, you would salt it. At any rate, yes, halacha.
Halacha removes the barrier.
Halacha removes the blockage. Learning the halacha, yeah.
Keeping it, I would presume.
Well, I would, if you don't keep it, you didn't learn it properly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so halacha removes the blockage.
Yeah.
Does that mean it removes the animal soul, which is blocking that part of this neshama, or does the Gula soul just now have access to the captive part of?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Like, what happens now?
Yeah.
Does it effectively end the captivity of that part of the neshama which is in captivity? Or does it merely remove the blockage that's preventing the higher level of the neshama from being able to communicate with the lower level of the neshama? And the answer is, we're already aware of the fact that there are two phases. So right now, remember, there's a two-part thing going on here. So right now we're talking about one phase. So now, yeah, it's still in prison, but it's getting letters.
So does that mean the animal soul has gotten weaker?
Well, yeah, for sure. It means the animal soul has gotten weaker. Has less control. Right now there's communication with the outside. That's right. Now you're getting communication. Okay.
Are there other ways? Because some people learn halacha and it doesn't do it.
Well, you have to learn the maamar first, and then when you learn the halacha, it'll actually affect you the proper way. Okay. V'hapadiyah, and the redemption, the dargas haneshama shebislabshus. Now, what's the redemption of the level of the neshama which is bislabshus, and which is captivated by the animal soul? Shehi b'shivya b'nefesh abamis v'shavehu bitzdaka. Its mechanism of liberation is tzedakah. So the mechanism of liberation for the Tzion level was mishpat, halacha. The mechanism of liberation for the lower level neshama, which is the one that's the prisoner of the animal soul, is tzedakah. Hainu klolos hamitzvahs shenikru tzedakah. And that means mitzvahs in general, which are referred to as tzedakah. All mitzvahs are referred to collectively as tzedakah. I wonder if we can finish this maamar because we have, okay. Yeah, okay. Because we're a little bit over time, but, okay, let's, if anyone has to leave, you can leave, but let's try to finish. Okay, let's, all right. Ubefrat ayidei tzedakah kipshuta, and especially literal tzedakah, meaning actually giving money to support poor people. Di b'tzedakah ksiv rechava mitzvascha ma'ed. Regarding tzedakah, it says your mitzvah is very wide. Shayidei mitzvah tzedakah nimshach hagili da'er habligvul, which means that through tzedakah it draws down an unlimited light. That's what it means, wide. V'agili hu gam b'haneshama hamulubashis b'guf. And that revelation, that wide revelation, even affects the level of the neshama which is invested in the body. V'alderech ze lamayla, and so too a similar phenomenon occurs in the upper realms, meaning to Hashem. B'sfiras hamalchus, shnikras b'shem shchina, the level of malchus, which is also called shchina, which corresponds to the level of the neshama, which is invested in the body. Al shem shemislabeshes betachtenim lahachayes, when it's called shchina because it's invested in the lower realms. Uba efen dislabshus, in a manner of being invested. Vayedeza nimshach gama gili de etzem neshama mamash. And through this redemption, what happens is we allow for a revelation of the etzem and neshama mamash, the literal essence of the soul. Shalamayla gam medargas and neshama shalamayla mislabshus, which is actually now a third level, which is higher than what we were speaking about before as the higher of the two levels. So let's just unpack what happened here. We redeem the part of the neshama which is invested in the body through mishpat, which is halacha.
That's the name of the maamar, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's why it's analyzing the pasuk. That's the way. That's the conclusion of it. Okay.
I thought that's tzedakah, actually. It's the gullus one that gets through
See,
Mishpat.
right. Tzion b'mishpat Tipadeh. Right. So we redeem. Thank you. Very good. We redeem the level of the neshama that is l'mayla mislabshus through mishpat, which is halacha. We redeem the level of the neshama which is mislabshus in the body through tzedakah, which means all mitzvahs, but especially literal tzedakah. Okay. And then he says that when that happens in microcosm to you, it's also happening in macrocosm to the Shekhinah, which corresponds to the level of the soul which invests itself in the body. And then he says, oh, and by the way, then the etzem and neshama mamish can shine, and that is actually a whole other thing. It's not the level of the soul which is invested in the body, in which was being captivated. It's not even the level of the soul which is above, right, called Tzion, which is above being invested in the body. It's a whole other concept which transcends both classifications. It's neither invested nor uninvested.
Like rut zone.
Perhaps. Okay.
Rut zone is
Like,
higher.
is it a level of it, or is it a totally different?
It is the etzem, which is not any level.
Just this.
It's not higher or lower.
It's a whole nother.
It is the essence of all levels, but it cannot be contained within either level.
It's like a silver. I mean, it is.
Well, here's the thing. We're not saying it's soivev. We're saying it transcends classifications of soivev or mamale. You cannot call it soivev or mamale.
It's beyond.
It's beyond that.
That's we're discussing neshama and shechina or just shechina.
You're saying, are we talking about the microcosm or the macrocosm? We're talking about the person or we're talking about Hashem? Both.
Okay.
Both. We're talking about the essence now. So the essence in the person is the etzem and neshama, which cannot be considered invested or above invested. And when you talk about the essence of Hashem, you're saying it's neither kudsha b'richu nor shchinte, it's neither soivev nor mamale, it's atmos. Atmos. The essence of Hashem. Okay. Val derech shnisbor la'el sif gimel shayichud deseviv mamale hu al yedei gili koyecho atmos. Like we said in chapter 3 of the Maimer, that yichud seviv mamale, the paradox where you can have seviv and mamale at the same time, is atmos, or it's an expression of atmos, the very essence of Hashem, which cannot be classified as seviv or mamale. The kaven shagam es ha'elam nosan belibim shel b'nei ha'adam, and since the world was given into the heart of man, hine al yedei zeh nimshach gam ba'olam. So therefore, when this happens for us personally, it happens in the world. When we have this personal change, it has a ripple effect. Shagilui de lamayla mahatava hanimshach mahasevev yeh begilui gam b'hatava shnimshach mimamale. That there should be a revelation of that which is above nature, in other words, Sovev, in that which is natural, in other words, Mamale.
Miracles?
It's neither Sovev nor Mamale. At this point now, it transcends these classifications where it doesn't have to be one or the other.
That's Atzmos.
That's Atzmos.
Is that Dir B'Tachtonim?
Yeah, Dir B'Tachtonim was the ultimate reflection of that because it's the infinite within the finite. Okay. And this is also the revelation of Atzmos, which is higher than both of these classifications. Which is the fulfillment of Hashem's desire to have a dira loy yisbarach. Why do we call it loy with a vav? A dira loy yisbarach, a dwelling for him, with the pronoun, his essence, as opposed to la Hashem, le Elokim, meaning we don't use a name because that would be limiting. Loy, a pronoun, means whoever he is. I can't label it. It transcends, like anoichi, which is also a pronoun, which transcends Sovev and Mamale and any other designations. That's what Atzmos is. Okay? So what we're describing here is we, through the mechanisms of halacha, which is mishpat, and tzedakah, which is mitzvahs, and especially the actual mitzvah of tzedakah, we are able to overcome the situation right now whereby our precious neshama is being hijacked and causing us to be reactive to material things and care a lot about material things. So we're overcoming that, and what's really happening is we're not just remedying these symptoms, but something much deeper, more holistic is happening. The essence of the soul is actually emerging. The essence of the soul which transcends either realm or classification. And this is a reflection of also on high Hashem's essence, which transcends these classifications of Mamale and Sovev, also being revealed, which ultimately means Dira Loy Yisbarach, the perfection of the physical world, which basically says that through our ability to overcome our own personal spiritual dysfunction, we are initiating a ripple effect that brings healing to the world. V'yirotzein, may it be God's will. Shebekarav mamish tukuyim ha'avtocha v'ha'yud tzion b'mishpat Tipadeh v'shaveh b'tzedakah. That very, very quickly it should be fulfilled, the promise and the pledge that Tzion will be redeemed through mishpat and its captives through tzedakah. Sheyamid melech mebeis David hoiga b'Torah mishpat. There will arise a Davidic king, a descendant of King David. This is using, by the way, the words of the Rambam when he describes the halacha of what classification or what qualifications Moshiach has to have. So there will arise a Davidic king, hoiga b'Torah, who contemplates the Torah, which the Rebbe says Torah is mishpat, like we said earlier, mishpat. V'oisik b'mitzvahs, and who is immersed in doing mitzvahs, which is tzedakah. So mishpat and tzedakah again, describing Moshiach as one who is a Torah scholar and who is immersed in mitzvahs. V'yilchem milchemes Hashem, and he'll fight the wars of Hashem. This is all from Rambam, from Hilchos Melachim, from the very end of Mishnah Torah. Who will wage the wars of Hashem, v'yinatzeach, and be victorious. The yesh leimer, now that Rebbe says in brackets, and perhaps we can say, shezeh sheyilchem milchemes Hashem, hu al yidei hu aveda b'dargas and neshama hamulubashes beguf. This, that Mashiach will wage the wars of Hashem, that is the level of the neshama that's invested in the body. Because that's a level that actually has to fight with the animal soul. Because it's invested in the body, it has to actually reckon with those oppositional forces.
It means literal wars.
conflict, internal conflict. I mean, yeah, Mashiach will also have to fight wars if necessary. I mean, I don't know what form it'll take. Maybe everyone will just surrender right away and there will be no bloodshed. It'll be a bloodless revolution,
But
obviously.
that could only happen once it's getting messages from the Shekhinah, from the Neshama and God.
That's
Because the highest captivity is that you don't even know you're a captive.
right. So obviously now it's getting clear messages.
Okay.
Right. So now the part of the soul which is invested in the body throws off the domination of the animal soul. And that's called Milchemes Hashem. It's called a war because, there is an oppositional force that has to be reckoned with.
That's like a daily happening. But okay.
Yeah, but we're talking about the ultimate resolution of it.
This is post
Okay.
the essence being in the Dira B'Tachtonim. This is post the revelation of the Dira B'Tachtonim.
Well, this is the process of Dir B'Tachtonim.
This is how it gets there.
This is how it gets there. The Yivne Mikdash, the Rebbe is continuing here, basically taking words from the Rambam. The Yivne Mikdash b'mkeimei, and he, Moshiach, this Davidic king, will build the Beis HaMikdash in its place. Sha'idei yia gilui gam b'chol ha'olam, and then there will be a revelation in the entire world, not just in the place of the Beis HaMikdash. The hachaloinis the Beis HaMikdash ho'ishkufim atumim. The windows of the temple were designed by Shlomo HaMelech. They would never pass an energy audit. They leaked light. Instead of containing light, they were built narrow on the inside, wide on the outside, so the light would go out to the world. So by building the Mikdash b'mkeimei, by building the Beis HaMikdash in its place, it actually creates a beacon for the entire world. Shemehem oira yetzes l'chol ha'olam, from whence light will go out for the entire world. V'yekabetz nidchei Yisrael, continuing the qualifications of Mashiach, he will gather in all of the exiles of the Jewish people. V'yesaken es ha'olam kulei laved es Hashem, then he will fix the whole world, that the entire world, meaning all of humanity, is serving Hashem. The cholzah and all of this, the Rebbe says, Bekod of Mamish, Bagoladidan, should be very soon and in our era, in our time. But now, obviously Tisha B'Av, which is a time of Churban and Golus, we want to think about Mashiach, we want to think about Geula. So the Rebbe now basically gave us an insight into, in microcosm, how we can experience our own redemption, whereby we can affect a macrocosmic redemption.